So, by saying that, so I warmly welcome you all, Ms. Chithranganee Mubarak, Chairman ICT Agency, Ms. Professor Mahesha from the SLIT, and Ms. Dirlukshi from IEEE, Mrs. Thelma Perera from ex-President Gajaba Regiment Seva Vanita Unit, and Mrs. Naini, and all the distinguished guests. So, and especially our male colleagues from the ICTA, and we are expecting more from the Minister of Digital and Infrastructure as well. So, I wish to extend my warmest welcome to the first ever Women IGF Forum. When I bought the idea of having Women IGF Forum, my male colleagues said that they also need to have a men's IGF. So, but I always wanted to bring my female friends and their male counterparts in one forum to discuss the challenges we are facing and find solution in multi-stakeholder forum. Today, we got that opportunity at the precise moment in IGF village to conduct our session. Women, as one of the fundamental stakeholders in the information society, play a very crucial role. It is important for the IGF to fully integrate the gender concern in its work. The three sectors with the IGF defining feature of multi-stakeholderism are not monoliths, uninterrelated and consistent actors. Greater efforts have to be made to ensure that women's diverse perspectives are brought to the forefront in each stakeholder group. Ultimately, a right-based approach to the internet governance is the only safeguard for the woman to fully enjoy the benefits of the internet. Access to the internet is extremely important for women to be able to gain information which may not be available to them otherwise. This will also facilitate them to achieve full realization of their rights, especially in case of those from the marginalized communities. The internet can also function as the harbinger of the citizenship rights, bridging their right to be informed with the duty of the governance institutions to inform. Today, in this forum, we have many distinguished panelists where they will be able to bring forward and highlight many aspects of IGF and women role in it. So specifically, the last panel will capture the main conclusions and be forward-looking. It will discuss how a transformative approach to gender equality, women's rights, and empowerment can feature in the IGF. Once again, I warmly welcome those who are joining today, online and physically, to this memorable moment, and most importantly, for your active participation. I look forward to fruitful deliberations. And also we got well-wishers from our international colleagues. Let me show you very small videos from the well-wishers from our international colleagues. First one from Ms. Joyce Deganais, Internet Society Chapter, President of the Chapter Development. Voice. Double clicker.
that access to the internet for women is very important
full screen.
information. It's important for the full realization of rights, especially in marginalized communities. But we also see that access to the internet provides very often an improvement in education in the communities. We also see that it very often leads to economical development in the community. So for women to be part of the discussions on internet governance and how the internet functions, what is important to it, and how governments will use it and will influence it is very important. So I'm wishing you all the best for your discussions. I'm looking forward to seeing the outcomes, and I hope to see many of you again at one of the IGFs and hopefully in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Observatorio de la Juventud es un proyecto que genera una plataforma participativa para las y los jóvenes que dialogan en torno a la gobernanza de Internet, sin importar su sexo, raza, religión o cualquier situación de índole social, para fortalecer capacidades. Estamos conectados, separamos comparar que acontece com as jovens mulheres que estão acessando e consumindo informação. Como e o que estão fazendo? Elas têm a possibilidade de dar ao que têm acesso, como estão acessando. O que acontece com as que ainda não estão conectadas? Y lo más importante, ¿qué significa ser una mujer joven en América Latina y todavía no estar conectada? As mulheres que saem do desenvolvimento têm 50% da chance de acesso à internet do que os homens destes países. Mas que existe perspectivas políticas de países de bajos ingresos no tienen acceso a servicios de telefonía móvil. Na América Latina, aproximadamente 15 países no
Egi sound sir ne alage mo kare hatte
cada 10 hombres solo hay 7
Mrs. Thelma Perera, ex-president, Kajaba Seva Vanitha branch. I please come to the head table for the discussion. Who else? Yeah, please. And I would like to invite Mr. Sameera Jayawardana from the Program Manager, ICT Agency. So we are waiting for Mr. Vasantha Deshapriya, Secretary, Ministry of Digital and Telecommunication Infrastructure. Unfortunately, he hasn't arrived yet, but we'll start our session. So Ms. Chithranganee Mubarak will tell you about her views of this topic. Please, floor is yours, Ms. Chithranganee.
No, not with this slide. I just use my laptop. Okay, very good afternoon to everybody. Firstly, I would like to congratulate Sagarika for her bold step in introducing this event to the IGF 2017, and also to thank her and the organizers for inviting me this afternoon to say something about my perspective on women in internet governance. So I was given a brief of basically what I should talk about. So in the main, my mandate is to tell you why I think women should, whether there are issues of women when it comes to internet governance and what these issues are in the first instance. So let me first talk about what internet governance actually is, what we are here to discuss. Internet governance in the early days of the internet was just limited to some set of policies which was associated with synchronizing and managing domain names globally. But as the scope of the internet grew and it became a medium for so much of information, just about everything, even to the extent that the internet could be used as a medium for surveillance of foreign governments and their leaders, it became necessary to have a more expansive governance. And so internet governance in this era has taken on a new dimension. So okay. So in 2005, when you've all heard of WSIS, right? World Summit on Information Society. In 2005, WSIS defined internet governance as the development and application by governments, the private sector, and civil society in their respective roles of shared principles, norms, rules, decision-making procedures, and programs that shape the evolution and use of the internet. So that is the definition of what internet governance is in the context of the internet as it is today. So internet governance is just not a product of some hierarchical institutional structure. Rather, it is a bottom-up, coordinated approach with tens of thousands of organizations coming together across the globe. And these organizations include network and server operators, domain name registrars and registries, IP address and standard organizations, ISPs, and individual users. And at the same time, civil society and governments also contribute by participating in development of policies. So now in this context of internet governance, does gender matter? I mean, that I think is what we are here to discuss. Does gender matter to internet governance? Is there an issue? I mean, why have you all come here together to discuss this? So it is said that the internet is the greatest enabler of all. And if this is so, if half of the population in the world is not going to be able to access that internet, just imagine what would happen. So if there is a disparity in the ability to access the internet and use the internet, which is supposed to be the greatest enabler of all, just imagine where that places women. The gender disparity will only grow huge, much more than it is even today. According to ITU statistics, the penetration rates are higher for men than for women in all regions of the world. What is worse is that it has actually increased. The global internet user gender gap in 2013 was 11%, and in 2016 it had gone up to 12%. So this is not coming down despite all efforts and all the talk that we are doing. This is not coming down. It has actually gone up. The regional gender gap is largest in Africa, which is at 23%, and lowest in the Americas at 2%. So obviously, we can all be convinced that there is an issue here. For sure, both men and women have barriers in accessing the internet. It's not only women. Both men and women have barriers in accessing and benefiting from the internet. But for sure, women and girls tend to experience barriers more profoundly than men, and they also face more barriers than their male counterparts. There are also instances where women choose not to access the internet. They have access, but they choose not to access for various reasons, for wrong perceptions of what the internet is, or for misplaced religious convictions. Even here in Sri Lanka, there are cultural practices which make the internet less accessible to women. The stereotype role of a woman in society, we all know what that means. I mean, most women wouldn't have time to access the internet, even if the access was available, because of all the functions they have to perform in their role in society: cook, sew, look after kids, do the marketing, make sure the next meal is on the table. And that goes for all levels of society. And if there is only one device in your home, for sure the man will control it. So that's the situation even here in Sri Lanka. Then there are racial and ethnic factors which affect a woman's mobility, being able to move around freely without somebody accompanying you to walk into an internet cafe. All of these translate into barriers to access. So obviously, the gender digital divide is a problem. It's complex and it is also widespread. So the only way that you can tackle this problem is by a concerted global effort. And this is why the United Nations in their 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development very clearly addresses the issue of gender digital divide. SDG 5, the Sustainable Development Goal 5, clearly states the need for achieving gender equality and empowering women and girls as one of the key goals. One of the 17 goals is that. Within this goal, in each goal, there are various targets. So this goal has the target 5B, emphasizes the importance of enabling technology, in particular ICTs, to promote the empowerment of women. Then again, under Goal 9 actually deals with building a resilient infrastructure globally. Here there is a target which addresses the need to have universal access to everyone across the world. So for sure, we cannot achieve universal access without bringing women, which is half of the world's population, online. And of course, this access has to be affordable, without which women's empowerment through ICTs will not happen. So what then are the issues that we are talking about when we talk of gender in internet governance? As I just told someone just before, we talk of gender as an issue in internet governance, but we can't talk of gender issues in isolation. We cannot take gender as an issue in internet governance as a standalone topic of discussion. It has to be discussed at the intersection of other social injustices and disadvantages facing women, like discrimination, oppression, women's exclusion from tech education, financial hardships, logistical and technical barriers, and socio-cultural practices and taboos. So women are not only less connected, but they are also benefiting far less than men from the digital literacy and skills training. And they are less likely to get hired by tech companies. And even when they do get hired, they'll probably get paid less than their male counterparts. And they are also underrepresented in tech conferences, in tech events, and in decision-making instances. So let me leave you with 3 areas of action that have been identified by a partnership called Equals. It's a global partnership, and their mandate, they've set themselves come together as a partnership for gender equality in the digital age. It's led by the ITU and UN Women. There are 3 areas that they have identified for action. One is access, that is achieving equal access to digital technologies, skills, ensuring and empowering women and girls to become ICT creators, and leaders, promoting women in ICT leaders and entrepreneurs. Let me leave those 3 areas of action for future discussion with you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mrs. Mubarak. Our next panelist is Mrs. Thelma Perera. So I'm just asking her, does the gender matter in internet governance, or what are your views in that perspective?
Thank you, Sagarika, and also our best wishes on behalf of the Army Seva Vanita for your effort on having the first women's conference on IGF. Yes, as you said, I like to bring up my ideas. Why should internet governance include consideration of gender issues? The reason I feel is that thank you. The reason I feel at present women seek the present is women seek equality because they are more educated, and there are 5 reasons why women need equality. The women owns more college degrees than those days because they are high on average IQ levels. Women actively include in the workforce, like the garment industry. A lot of women get involved in the garment industry. Companies managed by women report more motivated workers and higher productivity than those managed by men. Women are smart investors, and studies shows that they make better financial decisions every time. Countries that educated women have better economies, healthier citizens, and less violence than those don't. But gender equality does not consider in many occasions how much qualified you are. More and more men are qualifying into IT industry and prefer to have desk jobs. When women has to look forward for the motherhood during her life while working as well and be away from work for a certain period of time, men fill the vacant post of women. Another factor is when sharing social media, due to the reasons of top jobs being occupied the male counterparts, women are unable to communicate free for expertise advice due to lack of women representation in the field like planting, like I do. I find it difficult to communicate with a lot of people, fishing, seafood, and hospitality industry. There are many barriers and hostilities involving the computer that women need to overcome in order to gain her rightful place within the computer industry. Inequality within the computer industry is a phenomenon which we have seen began in early childhood, during which time girls were systematically and unintentionally discouraged from a wide range of academic pursuits, particularly in maths and science. This discouragement often leads to a lack of self-confidence when dealing with computers, which in turn leads to a lack of interest. Female students in computer science reported both overt and subtle discrimination with acute consequences. Females who do pursue a computer science degree reported feeling an extreme bias toward the male students within the classrooms. Women within the classroom experience invisibility where they may be ignored, interrupted, not looked in the eye, or simply not consulted for professional opinions. The bias toward men does not end at the graduation, but for women who do pursue an interest within the computer industry, the fight has just begun as many more barriers will have to be overcome. The lack of women online may be due to many different factors, one of the main ones being economy. On average, women's salaries are 40% lower than men, leaving women with less disposable income for computers, modems, and software, online services, and many additional phone charges. There also exists the very real phenomenon of the women's double day. Women come home from a paid jobs to dinner, dishes, cranky children, and tired husbands. As she mentions, yes. The internet is a threatening place for women due to the pornography, mail bombs, online sexual harassment, and flames, all of which lurk behind one click of a mouse. Most barriers to women occur once they have logged onto the internet. Harassment exists online in two forms: materials received by men, by a woman, and a material posted by women. Women can be harassed in a form of picture, attitude, or email. The most common form of harassment is flaming, which is highly aggressive language pattern. Suggestive or obscene behavior that is unwelcome or viewed as inappropriate by the women to whom it is directed. People will say things online that they would never say in the face-to-face conversation. For example, on a bulletin board in a Bay Area, a conference we started that compared women to pets that occasionally need to be put to sleep. Women are often ignored, trivialized, or criticized by men who have tendency to forget that there is an actual human being at the receiving end of one of emotional outbursts. By taking all this into consideration, I feel that women IGF should bring up the issues we face during the usage of internet as women. But IAM is, as internet users, should be able to educate more women to be computer literate and the dominant in the field. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Perera, for your views which inspired us. And I would like to ask from Ms. Dirlukshi. So what do you think about the internet governance? Why we should bring internet governance to this forum as a women topic?
Following the leaders, I'll come here. And with do I have to? Can you really? Okay. Okay. It's not no, I mean space is not enough because I'm having an extra large figure. Well, thank you. Well, I'm Dirlukshi. I'm representing IEEE. Thank you very much, Chithranganee and Thelma. With all due respect, I call your first names because we were having a conversation just now. Because with all due respect to my father and my husband, I have an identity which I would like to go as my first name. Uh, because that's also sometimes gender. I mean, we don't need to know that I'm so and so's Mrs. and so that's one part. And we got to know that basics of what's internet governance and the abstract of it. I mean, they both clearly explained what's the statistic behind what's what the world is talking about. So I thought I should not be, having these statistics also because it's kind of. Let me talk about some stories now. Internet governance. When you talk about internet governance, we talk about two things: access and usage. I mean, why do we need the governance? First of all, I mean, do you know that internet owns by somebody? No, right? It's set of bodies connecting to each other. Nobody's ruling anybody. So we need some policies, some people getting together so that nobody is discriminated or nobody get harassed. So that's the reason that governance body, government itself, private and the civil all together trying to build up a policy. So talking about the stories which I want to, which I want to exchange with you, or else have a conversation with you rather than just having my views. I mean, when you say when you have problems with the women to access the internet, yes, that is true. From my personal experience, I would say. Why? Because I'm going as my personal stories, so may or may not be applicable for some reasons. So the reason that I'm in Sri Lanka now, I always wanted to go and do a PhD in another country, which I got a lot of offers from universities, but my husband wanted to stay here, so I decided I want to support my family and live with him. And then I was wondering, had my mother-in-law, had my mother could easily access internet, we could have connected, even though we far away apart. That's the reason that we are here now, because we need to be connected. Had they know, or had they have access to the internet as much as we do, things would have changed. I don't know how many of your mother can access Skype and talk to somebody who are abroad. So that's one part. I mean, how do we address that? That's the past generation. How can we empower them? And then the newest, I mean, for that reason, I make sure my daughter plays with Candy Crush Saga every time where she likes, because they need to get access to the internet. They need to get access to the devices. They should be familiar, or else, they should be feeling comfortable of playing with those devices. And then that's the access part, and the rest of the part is the usage part. What comes, I mean, now that I'm here, but I'm proud to say I don't regret my recent choosing to do PhD here, because with the internet I have a lot of collaborations with, I mean, last month I went to MIT. Next 2 days I'm going to Stanford. That's the collaboration that we have with the internet. I mean, the world that you can see in 10, I wouldn't say 10, even 5, 10 years ahead, it doesn't matter where are you from. It will matter how can you access the internet and what skills do you have to move on socially in the internet world. So how can we empower women? So Sagarika, you're not alone. IEEE is going to have a leadership conference in October as well. So now people are trying to, encourage females to do STEM related subjects. Not just, I wouldn't say just females, but the entire society should accept that females need to learn so that they can contribute economically easily, so that the family can, I mean, ultimately it's the happiness end of the day. So when they can be happy and at the same time contribute economically, that's I see a good reward in the end of the day. So keeping that two things in another story that I wanted to I saw recently in the Facebook. I mean, so many women are afraid, as Thelma said, so many women are so afraid to use internet because they think that is something used against of them. Or else, how many women use internet for personal branding? They're really afraid, right? I saw a recent incident. One of the girls who has done a law degree but has worked in a bar as an attendant, but now the internet, I wouldn't say internet, some group of people are making posters about her saying that she has worked in a bar. So that has become a big deal. It shouldn't be. So what I'm trying to emphasize is now who in the world, or what policy, what government, what bodies will protect that, who is there to talk to her. So with that, I mean, so that we have to make sure that no women is harassed through internet. To whom to go and tell? Is it the police? Is it the government? Is it the ICTA, TRC? Who knows? Because nobody still aware how to prevent those things, or else how to protect those things. So that's another kind of thing. So we have the issue, we have the access issues, and we have the usage issues. Keeping that in mind, I would say as a active thing that we can do is to educate our children and to make them aware that there's something is going on. This is how you can protect yourself. So thank you. That's my view of my personal stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Dirlukshi. And our only male counterpart, Mr. Sameera Jayawardana, I would like to toss a question. Like, by listening to all these features, do you feel does the gender matter in IGF?
Shall I sit here and answer? Will it be okay? Or yeah. So so let me first of all, I would like to congratulate. In fact, our chairperson has already extended that. So on behalf of ICTA, so for inviting us and for this wonderful occasion. So I was wondering, I was sitting in this corner with three ladies, listening to their inspirational talks. I was wondering, we have our chairperson, a lady, who is driving the entire nations toward digitally empowered society, digitally, inclusive Sri Lanka. So that's the topmost organization at ICT for development in the nation. So that's a good thing. And we have a couple of nice ladies, those who have passionate about ICT for development, and from IEEE, and we listen her story and stories and her inspirational talks. So when we look at those things, I was thinking whether do we have issue? I was kidding. Okay. So of course, as Dirlukshi has stated, so it's about two facts, right? It's about access and usage. So one thing we should understand is, in my case, I have a daughter, I have a wife, my parents, my mother. So little one, of course, she's quite, she's a heavy user of internet. My wife, of course, she's into ICT. Because of that, she's working, she's using. But my mother, as she stated, she has no clue. Even she doesn't know how to operate a smartphone. So that's the ground reality. So why? So it's not just about the access all the time. It's not just about the awareness or usage. Sometimes it's their choice, as Ms. Mubarak mentioned. So there are priorities. As I don't know, you can argue with me. So as ladies, as from our cultural, inheritance, so we tend to think we prioritize our work as ladies. Even my wife, her priority number one would be kid. So that will be a different perspective we can consider when it comes to internet governance. So how are we going to address this? So we do have a problem. We do understand there's a problem. There's a gap. There's a digit. Sure, ma'am. Yeah, that's a nice question. In fact, he doesn't use a smartphone. Yeah. True. Okay. So that's true. That's another issue with senior citizens. So, the case here is we do have a problem. We do have a disparity or a gap. It's a digital division. Maybe you don't get equal access to information technology. So how are we going to address this? So that is, I would like to put my thought like this. It's up to you all to discuss and even argue. So governance, we always tend to believe governance is from governor's perspective. So like, policy makers' perspective, we are trying to restrict. So what I was suggesting, even if you have gone through some of the latest literature on World Economic Forum and some of the other literature, so it's about an enabler. How you can enable a lot of things through IT governance, maybe internet governance. How you can enable a lot of things, maybe the usage, access, and empowerment of women. How we can do this through internet governance. So that is the case or the fact I just wanted to put in. And in addition, I would like to add three things. Personally, I believe three things would do the job. First thing, the participation. So participation in the sense, how we going to get all people get inclusiveness. Actually, it's part of good governance. So inclusiveness. How we going to get participation of all levels of women. So from my 5-year-old daughter to say 75-year-old my mom. So that's the spectrum we may have to consider. It's not just about all of us in this room. It's not just about a specific segment. So it should cut across the society. And how are we going to engage them? That's the second part. So how are we going to engage? How are we going to facilitate through governance? How are we going to engage them to empower them? So finally, how are we going to make them capable? How are we going to build their capacities and competencies? So those things I just wanted to put. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Mrs. Mubarak will be leaving the forum since she has another commitment today. But we thank you, Mrs. Mubarak, for being here, and this is small token of appreciation for being in the now the floor is yours. You can shot any question to these ladies and the gentlemen, whatever you feel in this topic. So why should internet governance include consideration of gender issues? Feel free to ask any question in any language. I guess you're fluent in Sinhala and English, right? Little bit of time. Yeah.
I'm from the Ministry of Women's Affairs. I'm the chairperson of the National Committee on Women. We feel, and we have a hotline also where we receive complaints from the public, especially from women. And we receive complaints on cyber violence also. And we thought that now we are talking about governance, right? Governance is equality for both men and women. So therefore, now we feel that violence against women is sort of it's a discriminatory issue against women. So therefore, in governance, that violence in space, in cyberspace, now the incidents are increasing according to the information that we receive through 1938, right? So I feel now it's now we talk about access, we talk about so much, but usage, the incorrect usage of internet by men also really it's a matter that we should will talk when we talk about gender. Why should gender should be incorporated into governance, right? So I feel that aspect should be discussed and include in this whole spectrum of internet using. In fact, we have done a study also on cyber violence, right? There also this has been really revealed, and there are a lot of recommendations made on that.
So, any answers from our distinguished panelists?
I suppose it's the comment that she brought. It's not a particular correction, and I totally agree with you. I mean, you can hear me. I'm much more comfortable on my own, but it's okay if you can't hear, because that's discriminate for those who can't hear. So let me use it. Well, as I said, it's rather a comment, so that's not a question. But I totally agree with you. Just I have another story, because there was another professor came to Sri Lanka talking about big data, and she was talking about, big data is so popular, and they have a extra class in their university called small data too, because people are talking. It's just the same thing they all talk about with the big and the small. So it's just same as that. We have a problem, particularly men and women too. So they both need to come into the picture. So agree with you.
Any other questions?
Your questions, your stories, your viewpoints.
Sorry to take up follow up the story to say about the cybercrime and data sharing. We are today very well connected. Internet of Things are coming in, and a lot of people use these tools without actually knowing how to use or what is the best way to use. Take, for example, the Facebook. I'm sure most of you or all of you are visible on the Facebook. But may I ask the question, how many of you have actually read the conditions or how exactly to set your privacy in your Facebook before you start using it? That's a very good question to ask, because we say that we are actually being violated. We also need to be aware when we share our data and information, with whom do we share and what data and information to share. So you need to be knowledgeable and when you are sharing your information. We talked about openness. Yes, openness is required. We have to go to openness, but if we are to protect our privacy, we need to know where we should be open and where should be closed. So when we are using tools like Facebook, communication tools, we have LinkedIn, so many things, Google is really dominating the world today, connecting everything. When even in your mobiles, as you said, your father is not using, but maybe a lot of even school children are using very up-to-date mobiles. And have you actually clicked on whether your location to be visible?
Okay, so these things are very, very important. As parents, I'm not a parent, but I'm a teacher, I'm a lecturer. But so we also need to be careful when you are giving these tools to children, that they are aware of the repercussions. When you are putting Facebook, sometimes you see that children use very bad language, which somebody comments, which they're actually making to their most closest buddy. They're actually sharing with the whole world. And these are carbon prints. Once you make this comment, you cannot erase it from the internet. The carbon print is a very, very strong thing. And it is not now. The industries actually, when you are going to the job field, industries first look at your internet usage, how you are using, how actually you are visible, your comments, how what are your perspective of global issues. So these are also very, very important. We are today talking about governance, policies, and procedures, but again, we also have a responsibility as users to know the policies and procedures when we are using the internet. As you said, the internet is global now, and it cannot be controlled. If we are controlling the very basic essential of the internet, we are losing. So as users, we need to take responsibility as well. I'm not telling there are not crimes. Cybercrime is there. We need to be aware that cybercrime is there and take our responsibility to reduce that as well. So let's also talk about the policies and procedures for users, actually, as users, and not only the governance and that part of the policies and procedures. I personally think from the perspective of the users also, we need to have some norms how we use. They don't have to be regulations. They can be ethics, which we need to comply by, which also is extremely important. Sorry, I took up so much time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions?
Just bringing it back a bit to the consideration of gender issues, and should internet governance include a consideration of gender? I find that when we talk about women and the internet, or women and anything really, we talk about it in a silo. I think Mrs. Mubarak mentioned that the violence women face online, or the harassment they face online, is simply a manifestation of the harassment they face every day. They face them in the streets, in the bedroom, in homes, in the kitchens. They face them everywhere. The technology and online is just another place for them to face that harassment. Women being restricted from having devices, from accessing the internet, from accessing information is not new. Women are restricted from these things every day, as are the gender minorities and other marginalized groups. When we talk about women and IGF, we need to talk about women, patriarchal power structures, and how the role of women exists in this world. Because the minute you address that issue, all these other issues fall into place. Why is it that we're consistently talking about victim blaming, or we tell women they need to be careful online, they need to see what kind of information they're putting out there, but we're not discussing why is it that disproportionately, whatever the space, whatever the conversation, violence and harassment is faced disproportionately. There's a disproportionate amount faced by women. Why is that? Anywhere, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, whatever it is you want to call it. So I think we should just maybe move past all of the conversations and just look at it as, why do women face this violence constantly in our lives? Why is it that every single, from the moment we are born, we will be wondering, watching, and fearful of when and how we are going to face this violence? It's merely a matter of what form and what place. It's not exclusive to the internet.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful questions from the audience. I guess now we are running out of time. Thank you for joining us. But Sameera, we are not releasing you from the panelist table. It's a small token of appreciation, Mrs. Perera. And Dirlukshi, please wait a moment. This is small token of appreciation for being here. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time to start the next panel. So in this panel, we are going to talk about the internet is a feminist issue. Feminist roles in shaping internet policy. So I would like to invite Dr. Hemamali Tennakoon, Senior Lecturer from Asia Pacific APIT Institute, and specifically Ms. Manique Gunaratne for that panel also. So she will be talking about specialized training and disability resources, Center for Federation of Ceylon. And thank you, Sameera, for remaining in the panel.
So the floor is yours. Now you can talk and you can answer, you can argue.
Good afternoon, everyone. I represent Asia Pacific Institute of Information Technology. It's a higher education institution, and we offer computing programs, which is, I think, relevant to this discussion as well. I was having a discussion with the head of school who is here today, a computing school, and I asked, in your programs in the computing school, how do you see women participating in these higher education programs? And he was telling me about 80% of the student population in the computing school are men. Oh, I mean, boys, not girls. Okay. So the student population at APIT, and I think everywhere all over the world, we do see a gap in the representation of females, girls, undertaking higher education in the ICT stream or in computing. So earlier in the panel discussion, the panelists were talking about gender gap, their representation on the internet, and also the lack of knowledge of how to use these technologies. So I think one of the things that we need to address, even when we talk about governance, this participation, why we lack participation, is it because there is lack of education or access to education, or people don't know, or women are not aware of these opportunities, and lack of knowledge are depriving them of opportunities to go and participate in policy development, etc. But that is not our topic today for this panel discussion. It's more about feminism. So let me, that is a fun fact that I revealed up front. So let me move on to today's topic, this session's topic, internet is a feminist issue. So first of all, I think we need a bit of context to this discussion as to what we mean by feminism. The traditional view of feminism, and very recently, or rather in 1994, a British researcher introduced the concept of cyberfeminism. So the question that we should ask ourselves is whether internet today, do we have a feminist internet? And to answer that question, we need to know what feminism is. So the traditional understanding of feminism is it's about equal rights, of representation of women in economic, social, and other aspects of the society, and so on. But on the other hand, when you talk about cyberfeminism, this particular professor from UK, she was saying that yes, even though the traditional feminists believe that there is an imbalance when it comes to women's participation in all these areas, on the cyberspace it's different. Why? Because the inherent characteristics of the internet is that it's a space where people can freely express their ideas. So it doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter. Even if you're a woman, if you have access to the internet, you can express your views. So in that sense, internet is feminist. So there are two debates as to whether women are underrepresented or whether women are marginalized, whether we still have these patriarchal societies. Is there, gender-based violence on the internet? So my question, or rather than me telling you facts and figures and telling you things, I would rather like to encourage the audience to answer some of the questions together that we have on the issue of feminism and internet governance, or women's participation in policy development. So one of my questions is, should we be gender neutral in developing internet policies? Because does it matter whether you're a man or a woman? Violence is violence, whether it's psychological or physical violence, like earlier panelists were saying. Is it fair to say that just because you're a woman, you should have, certain protections or certain advantages over men? Or should we have specific policies that address women only because the feminist issues or the female-oriented issues on the internet or gender-based violence on the internet is very different to that of violence against men? So that is one of the questions that I would like to pose for the audience. If you can discuss, maybe contribute your opinions later on. And the second thing is the gender gap. So I think Ms. Chithranganee was talking about some statistics about the number of women who access the internet and for various reasons why they're not accessing the internet. So yes, I do have some supporting evidence to that 2016 study by the Pew Research Center in US. They surveyed number of countries, and especially in the African region, they found that compared to their male counterparts, women using the internet is very less. All over the world, in all the countries that they have surveyed, participation of women on the internet is very less. So my next question, or rather the statement that I want to leave you with you to ponder on is, okay, so if women don't participate, how do we present our views? How do we fight for our rights? How do we say that there is an issue, that certain things should be done if there's a huge gap? So closing the gap, is that the major issue that we need to look into? And the third thing, and the final thing that I want to mention is, before joining ABIT, I worked very briefly with Sri Lanka CERT. I don't know if any members are here representing Sri Lanka CERT. So a lot of the complaints that we received are Facebook-related incidents, especially violence against women, online violence. And then a lot of these incidents, when they get reported to us, the victims, they would ask, what would be the legal action that would be taken? Where should we go? Should we report this to the police? I think someone also mentioned that earlier, whether we should go to ICTA or Telecom Regulatory Commission. What happens to the victims? Is there some justice? So the next thing we need to ask ourselves is, in Sri Lanka currently, with all these e-government initiatives, e-Sri Lanka initiatives happening, the current existing policies or current internet policy of Sri Lanka, is it fair and inclusive of women's issues, internet related issues, or are there provisions in this existing policy framework in Sri Lanka that covers these feminist issues on the internet? So those are the three things that I would like to leave with the audience for you to think about, and you can tell us your stories, and we can maybe take questions and maybe try to have a dialogue around these issues. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hemamali, for your inspirational speech. And the questions you put that to the audience, so we need to answer it together. So our next panelist, Ms. Manique Gunaratne, and I would like to invite Ms. Chulie De Silva to the panel. She's an ICT consultant and famous blogger on the internet. So she knows better than us on the issues on the internet. So Manique,
podium. Yeah. One step up. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to ask, among all the beautiful women in this room, do you see any difference in me? Do you see any difference in me? Am I part of you? Yes. Am I part of you? Yes. Very good. To see, first of all, before saying who I am, just close your eyes for 15 seconds. It's just a humble request. Close your eyes for 15 seconds. And that's my world in total darkness. And being a woman with a disability, I come here and stand before you to speak on how women with disabilities can move forward with the technology. It's very important for women with disabilities to come forward. Sagarika said, first ever Women IGF Forum, and also the first ever Women IGF includes women with disabilities. That's the biggest barrier we have in Sri Lanka. And sometimes when you go beyond at international level, women forums are there in numbers, but very few include women with disabilities. I am grateful to Internet Society and to Sagarika for including women with disabilities as well. We are part of you. We, being women with disabilities, we are part of you. Actually, I stand here before you and talk to you. I'm using a PowerPoint presentation because of IT, technology, internet, devices, everything. I'm using a special device. I'm using a special software, and I am an IT specialist as well. I'm working at the Employers Federation of Ceylon as a manager specialized training and the disability ICT training and disability resource center. So I train persons with diverse disabilities on IT skills. This is very important for people with disabilities because we as person with disabilities, especially women with disabilities, we face a lot of problems in the internet when it's come to technology. So I'm making other women with disabilities to come out of barriers. Actually, women with disabilities, they can surf the internet and technology. These are the things. How can technology can assist women with disabilities? Education is very important for women with disabilities because in Sri Lanka, the girl child is tend to be kept at home, especially the girl child with a disability. They don't send to school because our rights are violated from the home itself. So for education, you can use technology. Employment, very important because I'm employed, I'm working as a manager. Why? Because of technology. I'm the only person with a disability at the Employers Federation of Ceylon to communicate with others, and to all our member companies. I'm using technology. E-governance, civic participation, very important for women with disabilities through technology. Financial inclusion, disaster management, because sometimes when it's disaster, women with disabilities, you tend to ignore and they are marginalized and they are left behind. So you can also use technology when it comes to disaster management. What are the technologies as women with disabilities can we use? Computers, very important because at our ICT training center, we train persons with disabilities. Especially I am trying hard to empower women with disabilities. Because in Sri Lanka, due to cultural barriers and overprotection by the families, very few women come onto the IT field. So I'm trying to empower, doing a lot of programs to empower women with disabilities. Smartphones can be used with all the assistive technologies, the screen readers, the assistive technologies, mobile audio and video calls, especially for vision impaired as well as for hearing impaired persons. text messaging, SMS. This is especially for hearing impaired persons. Sometimes you may wonder how a hearing impaired person could use the smartphone. It's because of text messaging, the text format, websites, emails. And in the morning we had the digital accessibility forum, and we spoke a lot on making accessibility websites accessible for persons with disabilities. And also instant messaging over the internet. Women with disabilities very important, because sometimes women with disabilities due to transport barriers, family barriers, because sometimes they are confined to home, they can use all these technologies and move forward in life. Voice over internet protocol services, web conferencing, social media. This is very important. Social media is used especially for women with disabilities. They can use this social media to give knowledge, to gain knowledge about their rights, because empowering women with disabilities is very important, to know their rights. Then only they can stand for their rights. Networking, very important, because sometimes they are isolated at home. Document sharing to gather information, because as vision impaired persons we have problems in accessing website due to websites not accessible for vision impaired persons, hearing impaired persons, because in communication information is not available in accessible formats. So this sharing, document sharing is very important. Cloud computing, backups, convert paper into digital world. That is very important, because in office I cannot read printed documents, but all that is converted into digital format, either through a machine or some other application. And also important, internet can be used to spread news about activities for women with disabilities. And also when women with disabilities, girls, speak out for their rights, it's very important, because they for their rights. And websites, we can use this for advocacy. It's very important to advocacy, and lobbying is very important for women with disabilities. You can use technology and the internet for advocacy campaigns. Improve quality of life. I'm here, I have improved my quality of life and my standard because of technology and internet. And also when there are policies and programs violating our rights, when women with disabilities are empowered and they use the technology and the internet, it's easy for them to fight for their rights. You can always, women with disabilities, now they have started using the social media, Facebook, business websites, Kickstarter campaigns, websites. Online chat forums, very important, because especially within the hearing impaired community, they cannot speak over the phone. So online chat forums are important. And also in the morning we were talking about sign language interpretation, very important on the internet. And also these are the all social medias and programs that we as persons with disabilities we use. And technology can be used for education, employment, and for advocacy opportunities. And we have to use equipments. Being a woman with a disability or persons with disabilities, we are using a lot of equipments and special softwares. And we have special features in these equipments, whereas we have the voiceover or the talkbacks, the screen magnifiers. Some applications, they do give the sign language interpretation, and also sometimes simplified text, especially for people with intellectual disabilities. We cannot forget them because they are also part of us. And also the social media and technology and internet. It allows women with disability to educate other women with disabilities and also men with disabilities. You should educate men also that we are part of you, that we are precious. Promote empowerment within the population. Discrimination, you should avoid all the discrimination and fight for our rights. And these are the benefits by using the technology as women with disabilities so that we can get empowered. Interactions, satisfaction, job satisfaction, and also mobility is very important because sometimes people with physical disabilities, we don't have accessible transport in Sri Lanka. So you can work from home and be with your family as well. Faster communications. Centrally locate the performance, connect with each other, right person perform in the right job. Online courses, this is important because we as people with disabilities, women with disabilities, it's very difficult for us to find places for vocational training and education because people with non-disabilities, sometimes they don't include us. So these technology and internet and online forums, that's very inclusive and sometimes accessible, so we can be included. And it's easy for researching, communication. And last but not least, I would like to say, if you see only the disability of a woman, then you are the person with a vision impairment. If you cannot hear the cry of women with disabilities, then you are the person with a hearing impairment. If you cannot communicate with your sisters, then you are the person with a speech difficulty. If you cannot stand for the rights of women with disabilities, then you are the person with a physical disability. If you cannot reach the hearts and minds of women with disabilities, then you are the person with an intellectual disability. So let's all of us get together and see the ability of women with disabilities, hear the cry of us for justice, communicate with us, stand for our rights, and reach hearts and minds of all women with disabilities to create a disabled-friendly environment with dignity and justice for all women with disabilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manique. Thank you for an inspirational and eye-opening speech. Next, I would like to Miss Chulie De Silva, famous blogger, to talk about her experience and how she can empower us, or whatever the benefits or the disadvantages you are having while surfing on the internet. Thank you. You can sit on this, otherwise we can't see you. You want, yes, but it's okay. Make it another PowerPoint. You gave that PowerPoint. I gave. Sachini gave it, I think. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry. Yeah. I'll talk without it. Don't worry about it. I'll talk without it. Thank you and good evening, everyone. I think sort of I'll talk because Sagarika first asked me to talk about my experience on the internet. And I think the internet, how it empowered me, was changed my whole life. I first read about it in the mid-1980s, 85 or 86, when I first read about the ARPANET, and I was totally fascinated. It was something that I could envisage as something very exciting, and I kept following it. And somewhere, to cut a long story short, it's okay, I'll talk without it. What happened was, after my sons got their first degrees, even I decided to go and do a master's, and with internet in
first it was library science, but with a very strong focus on the internet. And internet was just breaking and starting around 95. First time I used internet was also on a graduate summer school in Wales. And the first time we had access, the only person I knew who had email was my son. And I didn't know his email, but I knew he was at University Technology, Sydney. So we, at that time, probably the firewalls were not so strong, but we managed to sort of get in through various ways, probably called hacking now. And I found his email and sent him an email saying, "Big Mother's watching you." So he couldn't figure out. He said, "How the hell did you find?" I said, "Your system's not so secure. I could get into UTS and find your email, and I sent the email." So that's how I started. And then a lot of my coursework was on internet, how it would change the life. And even when I started working, that was the thing that moved me into communications from a basically library reference job, first at the US Embassy, where I opened a book, started doing the websites for them, and did a lot of other work on that. But the question is like, okay, I've empowered myself, but I had, since I'm a blogger and I'm writing, I had this woman who came to my door one day selling fertilizer. She was selling fertilizer. She was from Padukka. I also dabble in photography. I'm interested in photography for my blog. So I asked her, can I photograph her? Then she said, I always ask permission from everyone I photograph. And she said, no, what is it for? So I said, I'll write a story about you, how you're doing this selling and how it has, how it is, and it'll go on the internet. She said, no, internet, no, they cut your faces, put it on somebody's body. I don't want to be on internet. So that was her story, and she was from Padukka. So I didn't photograph her, respected her. And suddenly this year, so many years later, almost 3 years later, she turns up. She's still selling the same fertilizer, and she's the lady who didn't want to be photographed. But I was thinking, without internet, she's still in the same position she was. She's not empowered like us. But for me, I dabble with not only the internet, blogging, writing, I'm on all the social media, but the problem is access, the cost of access. Even as a high-end user, the cost has gone up tremendously in Sri Lanka. And you pay for a package, the data is not enough, for what you're paying for, and you upgrade to a other package, that is not enough. And so there's this whole problem. So how do we get people like that woman from Padukka to use internet if we cannot access because of the high cost of accessibility? So this is a huge issue on accessibility, and I think it has been brought up before. It's not just the usage. We can't train people unless you have facilities where there is free Wi-Fi, maybe like the telecenters we talked about 20 years ago. And I think it's sort of for me, looking at it now, it's more or less like a deja vu situation. We are back to where access is difficult, is costly. So that we are talking about empowering women. How do we do it? Because we don't have facilities to train these people. And whether there are any free Wi-Fi zones, whether we go back to the telecenter concept of setting up, learning centers for people to train women. So obviously it's very important to train, to use. The technology has moved so much that you can do with it, and the learning part of it. I've variously classified myself as an internet addict, a high-end user, that I'm totally onto internet and all the facilities. Even my children asks, you are a total addict. But a lot of these MOOC courses, which are massive online open courses that are available practically free, except, you have to pay for the access and downloading the course materials and that. So that sort of facilities that can be available to a lot of the women will not be available if access is not there. So all our talk is useless if the excess cost, we have high taxes on the internet usage that is presently in Sri Lanka. We talked about the accessibility bandwidth, I think about 25 years ago when we were first setting up. We did a program called Antarjale Obeni Vasata from Rupavahini, talking about setting up websites and doing stuff. We were a volunteer group. We set up a computer lab in a school in Anuradhapura, Niwattaka Chethiya. These were problems then. But I see with a lot of new facilities coming in, we are still in the same position because access is costly. How do we change that? Would ISP providers, government set up free Wi-Fi centers and with volunteers helping to educate women? These are some of the options we have to look into. I think that's my thing. I think Chithranganee and many of you have covered up. I also don't think, like Dr. Tennakoon, that it's a feminist, totally a feminist issue. It applies to men too. But how do we make the best use of internet, you know? And I'm a high-end user. I love all the things that come with it, you know, even on health issues, my exercise stuff, everything I can get on the internet, you know, and also monitor your health, all that. But all that is not possible if access is going to be high and expensive. So all our talk is useless if access is costly in Sri Lanka. Thank you.
So thank you, Ms. Chulie. And I would like to ask one question from the, not as the male counterpart, as the program manager, one of the program managers from the ICT agency. What do you think that can you address that access issue? It's not only for women, it's common for men as well. So do we have any kind of suggestions or thoughts on that?
Can I take up during my presentation just after this? I think that would be better, I suppose, if you don't mind. So let me put my thoughts on this specific thing what you have been discussing. So the internet is a feminist issue, feminist role in shaping internet policy. That was the topic. Then I was wondering, I also found the same thing, the cyber feminism, which was quite interesting topic. The first thing I firmly believe, I don't know, personally, I firmly believe, ladies, you all have greater influencing power from our childhood, from since our birth to death. So my mother, then my girlfriend, then wife, then my daughter, even my grandmother. You have a lot of influencing power. So one thing we may have to look upon here is how women community get involved during the policy formulation. So according to the topic, that's what I wanted to highlight initially. Then, of course, when it comes to the gender equality, of course, I don't know why almost every forum I hear when I'm walking to these women-related forums, every time somebody will emotionally talk about this what do you call disparity, or your complaints. You're always complaining. Yeah, I know that's true. For physical harassment and emotional harassment, of course, there are a lot of things. But this cyber feminism concept, the 1994 this article, which is a really nice one. Actually, it's a co-group, I would say. So that has clearly explained. I mean, internet is a place where you have equal access, irrespective of your gender. You can be a man or a woman, so you have equal access. And even other part, I mean, you may have seen that funny cartoon. The other side, you never know if it's a cat or dog. So that's the reality. So I think when it comes to cyber policy making, though internet policy making, I am puzzled with personally. Do we need to consider this as a feminist issue per se? So that we may have to discuss. That's one thing I just wanted to highlight. And as she asked, what are the things we're going to implement to ensure the uplift, the adoption? So which is very important, vital, not only for women. It's across the board. There are a lot of segments of the society. I'll touch during my presentation a little bit. Say sometimes senior citizens, there's a huge problem between age 30 to age 55 in Sri Lanka at the moment, generation X and baby boomers. So where they don't have any understanding on how do you use digital technologies for their day-to-day life. That's one of the challenges we are facing at the moment, even though we are having a lot of applications and a lot of eGov solutions are come up, and we are preaching a lot of things, but no point of having all these applications if people don't know how to use it. So that's a problem we are facing. So there are certain strategies we have been employing. So we'll discuss during the next presentation. So only those two things I just wanted to highlight. One thing, I firmly believe all women are influencers. You can influence not only men, and almost all the decisions you can influence. So, and as a community, then secondly, this cyber feminism, we may have to consider cyber feminism, irrespective of gender, how we're going to treat individuals with our internet governance. So those are the two facts I just wanted to put on my table.
So any questions from the audience? I saw a lot of young faces behind. So language doesn't matter. You can answer questions in any language.
Thank you for the very insightful presentations. I think nobody really touched on what does it mean to have a feminist internet. And I think I found it interesting that Mr. Jayawardana thought that there was no gender issue, or thought that we're getting emotional about gender issues. Because as a woman, I think we see the world and experience the world very differently from men. And so it's not surprising to me also that you think there are no gender issues, because in general, men don't think that there are gender issues. You have to be a woman to experience the kind of day-to-day realities that we face when we're walking on the street, when we're accessing the internet, whatever it is. So I thank you for your comment, but I don't really see how that fits into this discussion. Also looking at, a feminist internet, I mean, this topic is actually really interesting. And we talked a lot about inclusivity. So we're talking about ability to access the internet and ability to enjoy kind of the benefits of the internet. And we also talked about access, which is also really important, because as a feminist, some of these, I mean, these are the issues that we think about when we are thinking about the internet. So it's not just about using it, but it's about who has access to it. How much does it cost? Is it accessible to all women? Who really is in decision-making spaces around internet governance? Because if it's all men at policy-making levels, and you're not really cognizant of or sensitive to the kind of issues that women face on the internet, then you are not able to make policies that are responsive to that. So I think, to answer, the first speaker's question, no, we don't need gender neutral policies, because the entire purpose of this, also this forum, is to address the issue of the fact that all genders don't experience the internet in the same way. And there are very specific issues that women face on the internet that we need to address. And secondly, I would like to hear your thoughts about leadership and decision making, women's voices and inclusion in decision making spaces, specifically around data management and data security, online security of women. We touched a little bit on cyber harassment. I think a few people brought it up. So for me, especially around cyber harassment, a feminist perspective on that would be, how are we addressing cyber harassment in a way that does not curtail women's rights, her right to sexuality, her right to expression? So a previous speaker talked about this issue that's going on right now about a girl getting harassed who's a lawyer, and her pictures are being put up online. So the question is also, what is a woman's right to express her sexuality both online and offline, and how do we facilitate that? So how do we protect her right to her expression of sexuality on the internet without trying to kind of block her or protect her from herself, or like for her own benefit, we would try to curtail her expression of these rights. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on these few things. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your wonderful thoughts. So first of all, I don't know whether it's misspelled or misunderstood. So I didn't want you all to it's not personal harassment again about women. So I just wanted to highlight a fact where when you consider the cyberspace, we do understand. I mean, there are different ways of treating and different means of using and responding to different issues based on gender and some other factors. So you have to have strategies, and you have to have certain mechanisms to address those needs. So that's fair enough. And policies also should be developed based on the requirement of the different segments and different issues and challenges facing by different segments of the society. So that's fair enough. But I just wanted to highlight that fact, this cyber feminism concept. So what do you all think? So the answer is, it seems, so you think, you firmly believe you have to have a set of guidelines, a set of policies which is tailor-made, which address women in internet. So how we going to have secure access and use properly internet as women at different ages. So that might be the response what I see from young lady, what she has explained. So any other thoughts? We would like to hear from others. So any other thoughts?
Yeah, I have a thought. Shall I go? So basically talking about the telecenters, there are the nanosalas in Sri Lanka, which is a big program run by the government and the ICTA. There was a study done some time ago which says that these nanosalas are really not conducive for women, and that parents even call up to find out if there is a female at the center if they want to send in their child. So this was done some time ago. I'm wondering if that, if this has changed. Is it because nanosalas are a way in which where women from marginalized areas can actually access in terms of infrastructure? And so I'm wondering if these things have changed. Are y'all doing anything to maybe ensure that women are accessing this in order to access the internet, because that's very vital? And also there was another study, just to mention, that most women prefer to get online at universities, which felt that maybe they felt safe. But in my university, when I tried to access the internet, which was free, I couldn't do it. I couldn't even download a document. So I was wondering how that works.
Can I take both questions during my presentation, or else shall you?
Whichever.
Yeah, I think that would be good, because I'm going to talk about the same thing more or less.
Okay, thanks.
And specifically the nanosala thing, of course, the intention was of nanosala project was, at that time the computer literacy was around 4.3%, around 2004, I suppose. So the intention was to bridge the digital divide, access to information technology. So that's why the nanosala telecenter program has been initiated. So we set up about 1,000 odd nanosalas, and they ran up to 5 years. Now I think we have only 500 odd nanosalas live, up and running. So up to certain level, I think that entire initiative was a success, because now no one will go to, say, Badal Kumuro, rural area, and set up a gateway or IDM there. So that was the initial intention. There were certain complaints, not only about gender issues like women. I mean, this is common. This is common not only for nanosalas, even for some other initiatives. We have been doing a lot of government sector capacity building. Even for those initiatives, also there are certain complaints. And as a policy, ICTA, we highly concentrated on gender neutrality, and to ensure we provide equal access and equal facilities during all our interventions with all the communities. So that has been taken care of by ICTA. So you can see how passionate our chairperson is about the whole space. So, and in addition, since we have been discussing about policies, according to the new e-gov policy, it's now ready to go for cabinet approval. The new e-government policy, now we had the initial e-gov policy published in 2009 December. So the new one, which will get published within next couple of months, now it's almost done. That is purely based on good governance principle, 8 principles. So 2 principles. One thing is inclusiveness. The other thing is, if I'm correctly, it's citizen engagement or access to information. So under those 2 parts, under inclusiveness, not as marginalized communities, but specifically these all segments of the society, including women, have been considered as a significant component. So the policies are being developed, even the guidelines are being published. So you can download the policy document draft version from ICT website. Yeah.
So any other questions?
I have a story to share, like, because they brought up our, to tell the, I mean, IEEE, we yesterday had a session with one of the principal hardware engineer from Oracle San Jose. And we had the session at a company, Sri Lanka company, IT company. And there was this discussion came out why there's not enough systems engineer or hardware engineers in Sri Lanka. And then as part of that conversation, they brought like female engineers or the system engineers are not welcome because they are not taken for night shifts, because the company has a policy that they don't allow women to stay and work in the night shift, and they can't provide the transportation. That they see that as an extra burden for the company. So that, I mean, that's to share a brutal truth of the stories, because even though some women are passionate of doing those things, there are things that stopping them. So I was wondering whether ICTA is that the organization to address that, or I don't know to whom Sagarika might know.
Yes, let me add something to that, because my research in my master's is barriers for female network engineers for advancing their careers. In Sri Lanka, unfortunately, I was able to find only 8 network engineers, real female techies. Even though only 6 was into the real technical stuff. And so still the glass ceiling barrier is there, and we don't have the female role models. Into my knowledge, I guess I am the only network engineer in the university field. So when I go to the workshops, hardware configuration and so on, I'm the only female among 50 or 60 males. So that is there. So still we can't do anything.
That's very true, and that has been escalated. This is not the first time. So even Federation of the FITIS and SLASCOM, together with ICTA, they have been working for years on this issue. 2 things I know. So one thing, there's a working committee with vocational education sector, and another committee established with higher education. So to discuss about these gaps and how we're going to. There are 2 things. One thing is industry and this job market gaps. The other thing they have highlighted is the same thing, women in IT. So I think they have started 2 chapters, FITIS and SLASCOM, women in IT chapters, including CSSL. So FITIS chapter is up and running. I think if our colleague Siam is there, he can update about the progress. So, but still, from policymakers' perspective, yes, you need to get involved, and it's about perception, and it's about
the perception about the male guardian's role. We have to eliminate that from the field. Okay, any other questions from the audience?
Just a comment. So the other thing is, I think we also have to think of, like, when we talk about women, women are not a homogeneous group. So I think when we talk about women, like, for us to be in this space and talk about these issues, that itself is a privilege, where, we are saying, okay, we have access, and that's why we are here to talk about it. And I think when we talk about women's access and women's role in internet governance, we really have to think, like Ms. Mubarak mentioned earlier, all the different intersecting factors that affect women even more. So for an example, Manique talked about how being a woman and then being a woman with a disability, that's a double discrimination that you have to deal with when it comes to your access. So I think it's very easy to say there are no gender issues in the internet, or there are no gender issues in tech, but I think that's a very limited perspective of, like, how we see the women around us, maybe. So we really need to think of it in a more broad way and in a more intersectional way. So I think when it comes to policy making as well, that really is why we do need multi-stakeholders in the room. So even at a women's IGF, I would love to see more civil society representation as well at a panel and not just in an audience, because we need to see what those voices are as well and what the kind of work they are doing as well. And I mean, it's really great that this kind of a forum has been formed, because I think we are also discovering each other, different people who are doing different kinds of work, which is maybe not really connecting at the moment. So I would really like to see how we can take it a step forward, because I think if you're having a women's IGF, we've already decided gender does matter in internet governance. I think we don't need to keep, trying to figure out whether it does. It really does. I think we can just decide it does and see how do we move forward from there, right? So I really think that would be good. And the other point I want to make is, when we talk about access, what kind of access are we talking about for women? Is it just saying a household has an internet connection? Like, is that is that how we say that's an indicator of access? Or what is meaningful access? Are women actually able to create technology? Are they only users of technology? And are they able to create content? Are they able to have discourses on these spaces? So when we talk about access, I think we really need to think of the nuances in that term and think of it in that way. So and for the question, that we had about women in STEM and all of these things, I think we really need to go to the human rights frameworks as well, because already Sri Lanka has agreed to a lot of different kinds of international human rights frameworks, which have accountability mechanisms, which talk about women and technology, and women and the internet, and women's freedom of expression, all sorts of things. So it would be really good to see, what our state obligations are, and that would be a really good point to look at policies. So yeah.
Thank you for your valuable comments. And I think we have to we are looking for the way forward with this IGF initiative, women IGF initiative. And so it's time to get refreshed. So tea is ready. Can we have a quick break since time is running out? And I would like to thank our distinguished panelists to sharing their thoughts and answer the questions from the audience.
We have a small token of appreciation. First, I would like to invite Miss Manique Gunaratne to accept our small token, and then Dr. Hemamali Tennakoon, and then Miss Chulie De Silva, and Mr. Sameera Jayawardana. Thank you all. Let's have a quick break and we'll continue the way forward after the break. Shall we have a 10 minutes break? Thank you.